Hey everybody, I'm back with another kind of surprise travel vlog about my trip back in May to the UK, where I got to go to Warhammer World for the Warhammer the Horus Heresy Weekender, and got to have some sneak peeks of stuff. And in fact, I got to go to a second little sneak peek for something that's just started to be talked about this week, which is the new contrast paint line. If you remember the first time around when contrast paints launched, I got sent just kind of like out of the blue as a surprise a big bag of contrast paints. I played around with them, made a bunch of different videos, tried to figure out what they could and couldn't do. Now, in the years since then, obviously, contrast paints have kind of just become absorbed into how I paint things. I'll use them very often when I want like strong saturated colors, and I've played around with them a whole bunch for a bunch of different army projects. I painted my Cruel Boys for Age of Sigmar with them, a bunch of stuff for the Lumineth Realm Lords. I did my War Band for Warhammer Underworlds with them. Even played around doing like Trolls and Orcs and Goblins, and did my Big Drog Fort Kick. I did a giant, huge model with them as well, just to sort of stretch out and see what they could and couldn't do. Obviously, anything with tons of detail, they were a ton of fun on. I used them whenever I wanted really strongly saturated colors. You've seen me in other game systems where I want like a cartoony look, or sort of like really fine detail miniatures where they've got lots to grab onto and sink into. But they did have some limitations. One of them was the primer. You really needed to have the right sort of like tooth in the primer. Anything that fuzzed or had a grain would keep them from doing their thing where they would transition and give you that nice gradient from like a dark color to a light color. And certain colors would separate faster than others, or just give kind of like a not quite what it said it was going to do kind of result. But I had a few favorites. I loved the yellows, I loved the reds and the oranges, a few of the blues and grays, and even Apothecary White, although it was more sort of like dependent on the primer underneath it, and I played around with lots of other primers as opposed to the Grey Seer and Wraithbone to get the results I wanted. They became sort of like staples in my repertoire, and I went through lots of different pots of them over the last couple of years. But I got to hang out and check out the new ones back in May, and now I can talk about it. So I'm gonna talk about it today, and I'll even give you a little insight into how the meeting went. I gotta take some photos that you guys can check out of sort of like how it went and what we were doing. And I painted two models that I brought back. So let's take a look at the meeting, sort of the inside the sneak peek, what I was painting and how it went. So set the scene, it's the day after the Horus Heresy Weekender. We're all hoarse from talking to everybody there and having a million conversations and walking around. We get up and we've been invited to the seminar on paints, and we didn't really know anything apart from that. So we wandered down and get some breakfast. There's a cool meeting room set up, and as we're invited in, we get to see that we have painting desks, tons of new paints like lined up on them, paintbrushes, and some pre-primed models to check out. The seminar itself overviewed sort of the chemical changes and just the plan for wanting to make better coverage and more saturated colors, different styles and sort of like vibrancies, and that a lot of thought had kind of been put into which paints were really working, which ones were most popular, and which ones they thought they could improve on. And then we were just invited to play for 7 hours with these paints. I had a bunch of Primaris Marines and some Stormcast Eternals in front of me, and I sat down, as is sort of like my instinct always is to be at either the back of the classroom or the back of the bus, and that naturally kind of gravitated me towards people who have the same mindset. And so I ended up at the Troublemakers table with Nick from Play on Tabletop, Ollie and Kira from Broadsword Wargaming, and Lachlan from Zorbazorp. And of course, we immediately began making fools of ourselves to each other and seeing who could one-up each other the most, make each other laugh the most, and generally spent a really enjoyable 7 hours just trying out all the new paints. So one of the things that they were explaining during the seminar was that the primer had become so important to the using of the contrast paints that they went and developed a brand new white primer. And that was my sort of like first sort of gut instinct was, well, I want to see what that actually means. And the new white primer, which I've gotten to use now twice, is a great foundation for their new like actual white contrast paint. And so I went around playing with that, playing around with the different vibrancies and layers. And what I wanted to do was just try out using contrast paints and then just black and white. So they had the rest of the Citadel Colour range there for us to grab and play with if we wanted to. I just wanted to see what would happen if I used the contrasts and then blended white and black into them to either darken or lighten them, and then a few metallics. I also got to try the new shades. So I used the new Bloodletter shade over top of, I think it's Canoptic Alloy, for some of the metallics there. And I also wanted to try out the contrast over top of metallics, but I'll talk about that in a second. So as we sat and chatted, I was painting the Space Marine. I used sort of some blue grays and the whites, because one of the things I found really challenging with the last ones was to get a white that didn't just look like a very light gray. And so I used this over the new white primer. I used the new sort of like blue grays, and then with just a bit of white mixed into it and some cross hatching, did some highlights. And I was really happy with the result. The skin tone even was almost just, I think, one highlight over top of the skin tone contrast, and same with the hair. I did like there was a kind of a pale yellowy brown that I got to use. I'm not super familiar with all the new contrast names, obviously, so this was just me kind of like trying them out. As I go through and do more of these videos, I'll actually pick out which ones I finally used. But this is the end result. I'm pretty happy with them. And I have to say that for as quickly as I painted them, I mean, I slapped contrast down and did some highlights. This was probably like 40 minutes of painting. That was a pretty good result. And then I stuck a little chapter symbol on them, which was just an A, because I couldn't think of anything else to do while I was chatting. From there, I went and grabbed the Stormcast Eternal model that you see that I painted, because what I wanted to try out was, one of the things early on the last time we did contrast paints was, what does it look like when you have the sort of colors put over top of metallics. And so I did this blade there in that methodology. I used some purples and some blues on the blade to tint it. I used a light purple and blue wash over top of the armor to give it kind of like a, almost like a mithril kind of effect. And that's, I think, just Stormhost Silver base coated down. And I used the new Agrix Earthshade over top of that Canoptic Alloy to give myself that nice little gold as well. Then I want to try purples. One of the things that contrast paints really kind of struggled with the last time around was a decent purple. Shyish purple, it didn't, I don't know why, but it went, I think it just went too fast from dark to light. The dark was really dark and the light was really light. And so it didn't give a great like sort of transition. So I tried it, I think it's not Volturnus Pink, it's, the old one was called Volturnus Pink. I can't remember the name of this new one. Fulgrim Pink or Fulgrim Purple maybe. But the coverage was perfect. And then when I mixed a little bit of white into it, I got like a really nice smooth transition, which you can see here on the cloak for the Stormcast. And those were the two kind of like, I think, things that I was most excited about checking out, was the white primer and white contrast paint, or the sort of like pale contrast paints over top of it. How I could tint metallics with it. You can see here the shoulder pads and the feet for the Stormcast. I was able to get some nice transitions. What the new shades look like, because they're getting rid of the gloss shades, so I wanted to try what the new shades look like over top of just these metallics to see what the sort of like the finish was gonna look like. And then the purples, because the purples and blues were the ones that I found I struggled with the most the last time around. The greens and grays did really well for the most part, and the yellows were phenomenal in the first round of contrast paints, but I wanted to see what they look like with this new set. And so when we were all done, we were invited to take our models with us, which is why I'm able to show them to you today, which I was pretty pumped about. And yeah, and on we went. So it was a neat like little invitation to get a sneak peek at the paints themselves, and I'm excited to try them out in my repertoire. So there you go, a little look behind the scenes at the meeting. I got to check out the new Citadel Colour in, some of my older models I've painted, the two new sort of like paint jobs I got to do while I was there over those couple hours, and kind of insight into the shenanigans that some of the content creators and I got up to while we were going through and playing with all these new paints. Now, just literally last night, as I'm filming this on Wednesday, and you're hopefully seeing it on the weekend, I got these. I got a big old paint bag of new shades in Citadel Contrast to actually check out. I'm super pumped about this. I have a bunch of miniatures that I think they're gonna be perfect for. In particular, I want to try them out on the new Squat Necromunda miniatures. A bunch of things where like there's just the right sort of like color palette or sort of like detail depth to try them out on. Even the new Horus Heresy miniatures I think will be a good candidate for that as well. So stay tuned for the next couple weeks. I'm going to be experimenting them, tell you what I think about the various colors. Obviously, having a little sort of like couple hours to play with them with just the models that were in front of me, I couldn't really stretch out and see what they can do, and I'm going to give you more insights and fill in on more things. But give me your questions below. Tell me what kind of things you might want me to experiment with, or models you want me to try them on, and I will do my best to keep up with that and show you more details. So thanks for watching. More to come. Till then, I'm Ash. Up, we're going.